Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over a college football game preview on one of the major games coming up in week number 7 of this 2020 college football season, and that's going to be between Georgia and Alabama. Both these teams are currently ranked in the top 3 of the AP poll, and both teams in general are looking like some of the best in the nation, and definitely some college football playoff contenders will be going head-to-head in this game here. And yeah, very important game for both these teams, and that's what we're going over here today. We're going to be going over a college football game preview and prediction on this one, starting out with your team trends. Last game, Georgia beat Tennessee 44-21. That was a big win there for Georgia. Of course, Tennessee was ranked in the top 15 last week, so for them to beat them by over 20 was a great win for Georgia, and that just kind of shows how good this Georgia team really is this season. And of course, after Jamie Newman decided to sit out due to the coronavirus, of course, it didn't really look like Georgia was going to be as good of a team this season because of how good Jamie Newman was looking to be this season. But I mean, really, that hasn't had much of an impact, apparently, as they've really rolled through the first 3 games of their schedule so far this season. As for Alabama, they beat Ole Miss 63-48. Great win for them there. They put up 63 points. However, the defense allowed 48 points there. So that defense for Alabama did not perform very well last week. They've really got to improve that if they're going to beat Georgia here in week number 7. As for your winning streaks here, Georgia's, of course, ranked 3rd in the nation right now. They're 3-0. And they've got a 3-game winning streak. As for Alabama, they're ranked 2nd in the nation, 3-0, and also have a 3-game winning streak. So both these teams are 3-0 heading into this matchup, and one team will leave this matchup as no longer an undefeated team. Games coming on Saturday, October 17th, 8 p.m. Eastern in Tuscaloosa, so Alabama will be your home team for this one. Spread currently says Alabama by 5. ESPN FPI also has Alabama 61%. And Vegas actually has Alabama by a decent amount. 37-25 is the final score currently predicted for this matchup, with Alabama leading it by 12. So that was a big surprise there. I mean, both these teams are pretty evenly matched, I would say. So for Vegas to predict a 12-point win for Alabama there is a bit surprising. But still, I'd say the spread and the FPI are pretty accurate as far as close games go. Here's our stat comparison as well. Of course, for points per game, Alabama's currently got 51. They're averaging 51 points per game through their first 3 games of this season. As for Georgia, they're sitting at 36, but they've only allowed 12 points per game. So, and meanwhile, on the Alabama side, they've allowed 30 points per game. So, as far as the defenses go, Georgia definitely has performed a lot better, as they've only allowed 18 points less as far as points allowed on averages go. But as far as points per game, once again, Alabama does lead that by 15 with 51 in there. As for pass yards per game, Alabama's the more of a passing team. They got 385 pass yards. And then as far as it goes for Georgia, they've got 248. With rush yards, Georgia's got 172. Alabama's got 175. Then for yards allowed, Georgia's got 198 pass yards and then 38 rush yards. So this Georgia team has got a really good rushing defense for the season so far. They've been performing really well on that side of the ball. As for Alabama, though, they've allowed 322 pass yards a game, which is pretty terrible. They definitely cannot be allowing Georgia to pass that many yards on them here in this matchup if they want to win it. But they have allowed 150 rush yards as well. So this rushing defense, or this defense in general, just has allowed way too many yards, especially if you're going to want to beat Georgia in this matchup. Your defense is going to have to play a lot better in comparison to how you have so far this season. Once again, having a points allowed average of 30 points through 3 games is not very impressive. Alabama's definitely going to improve that if this is going to be a national title type of team this season. But as far as the games go for these teams so far this season, Georgia has beaten Tennessee and Auburn up until this point. They actually took care of both teams pretty easily. They beat Auburn 27-6 the week prior to last week, and they also beat Arkansas in week number 1, 37-10. As for Alabama, they beat Ole Miss 63-48. Also had a big win over Texas A&M, the 13th ranked team in the nation, 52-24. And then they also beat Missouri on the road 38-19. So all 3 teams have taken care of their opponents pretty easily so far. But I would say Georgia has had the tougher schedule, having to play both Auburn and Tennessee, 2 top 15 teams so far this season. So yeah, Georgia has got a decent amount of experience heading into this matchup. But then again, they've played 2 pretty tough opponents down the stretch into this big game here against Alabama. So that could be a bit of a disadvantage as well. But once again, for both teams, they've all got 3 wins. And 3 pretty good wins for that matter as well. Some key points here. Georgia's had a tougher schedule with more experience. Alabama's offense is among the best in the country for sure. I mean, Mac Jones at quarterback has been playing great so far. Same thing with Najee Harris, their running back. He's been one of the best in the country as well. So Alabama's offense is great, but once again, you just got to look on the defensive side. Alabama all season. It's not had a very good defense, and they're going to have to really improve that in this matchup once again if they're going to be able to stop this stellar Georgia offense. And I mean, it's definitely possible that they do, because we've seen how good of a defense Alabama's had in the past. So that's something they definitely have to improve on. But I would say this is more likely going to be a defensive game here. I mean, you got two good defenses. Once again, Alabama, they can play good defense if they just, I mean, obviously they just have not played it as well this season, but we've seen it in the past how good Alabama's defense is. So that is something that we should see in this matchup here. But Georgia, on the other hand, as far as it goes on defense, they've been playing pretty well this season. Once again, they've only allowed 13 points per game through their first 3 games. And let me remind you, they've played some pretty tough opponents so far this season with Tennessee and Auburn, and only allowing 13 average points to their first 3 opponents. It's pretty impressive what Georgia's been able to do so far this season, but I still would say this is likely going to be more of a defensive game. Halftime score is going to be 17-14. I think Alabama leads it at the half. However, in the final, Georgia's going to go into Tuscaloosa and get a huge win here on Saturday night. Final score is going to be 31-27. I've got Georgia winning this one. I think Georgia goes in and gets a massive win against Alabama. I mean, Alabama's been kind of a problem for Georgia in the past, but I think this is the time where we see Georgia break through and get a major win. This is going to be a very impactful win, I think, to Georgia in the end of the season. I mean, obviously, this is going to be a big game that could have big impacts down the stretch, especially when it comes to playoff time and once we are starting to see what teams these two teams are going to start becoming. But obviously, both teams are looking great so far this season. This is going to be just kind of a test to see where each team is at. But I do think we do see a back and forth game for the majority of the time here. It wouldn't surprise me a single bit to see Alabama win this one. But once again, I've got Georgia going in and getting a big win. 31-27 will be your final score. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, though, on this matchup. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. Let me know your score predictions, etc. Also, if you enjoyed this preview, slap a like on this one. Subscribe as well. Really helps out the channel. I really appreciate that. But as always, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I will see you all later.